School District Governing Board. We did have a 5 o'clock study session on a new mandatory reporting law that affects governing board members. So we had an earlier presentation, but we're now going to reconvene into the normal, regular meeting. And I'm going to, on behalf of the governing board, I want to welcome everyone here this evening. Members of the public are attending both in person and online remotely through YouTube Live. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to read the rules of order for public comment at a governing board meeting. And if you wish to make a comment remotely, anyone who might be listening online, you should have signed up using the Google form that's available under the YouTube Live description. And if you don't see that form, refresh your link and that form should show. And if you're attending in person, before we get to our public comment section, you should fill out this purple sheet that can be found on the table at the front of the room. There is a public hearing during this meeting on our budget revision, so we'll reopen the opportunity for public comments during that public hearing. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I did just want to point out that our president, Amy Kraus, is on the screen up there. She's attending remotely as well. I'm the vice president of the governing board and just pinch hitting for her this evening since I'm in the room. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read the full rules of order for governing board meetings. The governing board welcomes public comment at its meetings by providing 2 opportunities for the public to address the board. If your topic of interest is not on the agenda, you can address the board during the public comments time slot near the beginning of the meeting, or if the topic is on the agenda, you can speak just prior to the discussion of that agenda topic. In the event there is a public hearing, which there is tonight, the opportunity to speak will be reopened. If you're joining remotely and wish to make a public comment, you should have already submitted the Google form provided with the YouTube link. For those attending in person, again, please hand a completed purple form, request to address the governing board, to our board secretary, Amy Sams, over there at her desk. This information on the form is required for our meeting minutes. Speakers will be called on when it's their turn to address the board. For those attending remotely, you may choose to enable your camera. As a reminder to remote attendees who wish to speak, please unmute your microphone when called upon. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The sound of a buzzer indicates the end of your 3 minutes. And in the event of a large number of speakers, the board may need to limit that time so they can conduct the business on the agenda. By law, the board cannot discuss, consider, or vote on topics that are not on the agenda. This assures the community they're aware of the topics that will be discussed this evening. If you wish to discuss a topic through written communication, board members' contact information can be found on the district's website. We appreciate the community's attendance and your comments at this meeting, and thank you all so much for coming. Okay, so we're going to go to the main event right now. Our item 3.4 is our super volunteer recognition, one of the favorite segments of our governing board meetings. We all enjoy these so very much. Tonight we'll be recognizing Ashley Crook, Manzanita Elementary School, Orange Grove Middle School, and Catalina Foothills High School super volunteer. And our board member, Gina Maymert, is going to be making a presentation this evening.
You're gonna stand with me. I know, right? Yeah, I hope we did. We spelled her name correctly, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
believe so.
Okay.
I said it's rare.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm so used to it.
I know. So, yes.
Hi, Amy.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so honored to stand next to you and to give you this
What
award.
a long, strange trip it's been.
Indeed, indeed. So we first met when our youngest were in kindergarten together, and they bonded over chickens, like live chickens in a coop,
Eggs.
and eggs that turned into chicks. And we bonded over how weird and crazy and blonde our boys were. So it's been quite the ride, and I'm very honored to share this evening with you as well. I do actually have a proper speech, so we're going to go to that. And then afterward, I'll ask Dr. Lambert and Mr. Ruben Tolles if they would like to share a few words. You'll have the opportunity should you wish. And it's going to culminate in the world's coolest keychain.
Wow.
All right. Which is quite special. It says making a world of difference, which is fantastic. So let's begin, shall we? So good evening, members of the governing board, Dr. Bartlett, fellow parents, educators, and community members. As I said, I'm very honored to stand before you tonight to speak about someone who truly means so much to me personally and to our school district as a whole. Ashley embodies the very heart and soul of our Catalina Foothills School District. For those of you who may not know her personally, Ashley is the kind of person who doesn't just show up. She transforms every space she enters. She elevates every project she touches and inspires everyone around her to be their best selves. Let me take you on a journey through Ashley's remarkable contributions to our district. It began at Manzanita Elementary, where her presence became as constant as the morning bell. Like I mentioned, our youngest sons were in kindergarten together. And so that gave me the opportunity to witness firsthand how parents and teachers alike relied on your extraordinary organizational skills and your seemingly limitless energy. Whether Ashley was coordinating t-shirts for the Desert Dash, organizing volunteers for a school function, or just quietly helping out in Ms. Wiley's classroom, she approached every task with the same level of dedication and enthusiasm. In 2018, she gave our district something very, very special. Through her vision, dedication, and personal generosity, she brought the first Ben's Bells Be Kind mural to our Manzanita campus. This wasn't just about creating beautiful art. It was about manifesting her belief that kindness should truly be at the core of our community. That mural still stands today, and it's a daily reminder of the values that Ashley champions and the lasting impact one person can have when they lead with their heart. As Ashley's children advanced to Orange Grove Middle School, so did her spirit of service. She took on multiple FFO roles, but what's most remarkable is how, Ashley, you approached every responsibility, not as a duty to be fulfilled, but truly as an opportunity to make our school community stronger. Ashley had an uncanny ability to identify needs before they became problems and to find solutions that benefited everyone. From the seemingly simple task of organizing PE uniforms, not simple, just putting that out there, to helping the community address complex challenges, Ashley consistently demonstrated what effective leadership looks like. As another long-term volunteer supporter shared with me, Ashley personifies super volunteer. She is always positive, always supportive, and always willing to do what needs to be done to find solutions. Her children moved on to Catalina Foothills High School, and so did her volunteer time. Ashley's innovative spirit continued to shine. Who else would think to create laminated bell schedule lanyards? It seems simple, but this very practical solution helped dozens, hundreds of students navigate their days more easily. And true to her nature, Ashley actually personally produced these at her kitchen table and funded them so that 100% of the proceeds would go to the FFO. Ashley's dedication to staff appreciation has become legendary. Monthly breakfasts, themed lunches like Taco Tuesday, special treats during grading periods. These might seem like small gestures, but they've had an enormous impact on staff morale. And here's what truly exemplifies your character. You didn't just organize these events, but I know that you're there. You're washing the crock pots, you're handling all of the unglamorous behind the scenes work that it takes to put on these events. Ashley makes it a point to reach out directly to teachers and staff, offering not just help, but genuine appreciation and encouragement. And in a profession that can sometimes feel undervalued, Ashley, you make sure our educators know just how much they mean to our community. What makes Ashley's contributions even more remarkable, as if we could get more remarkable, but we do, is her leadership style. She leads with humility and collaboration, never seeking the spotlight, but always willing to shine it on others. Her energy seems boundless, but it's her heart. It's your heart, my dear. Your genuine care for every student, every teacher, every staff member, every family that has made the most lasting impression. Former Manzanita principal Kim Bowling, who's unable to be here tonight, perhaps though said it best when she submitted this. She said, Ashley embodies the spirit that makes our schools special places, ones that draw people back, sometimes even for the next generation. This is the essence of Ashley's impact. She hasn't just served our school. She's created the kind of community where people want to belong. They want to grow their careers. They want to contribute. They want their children and their grandchildren to come to learn and grow. As we recognize Ashley's lifetime of extraordinary service to our district, I ask you to think about the ripple effects of her contributions. Every student who feels more welcome because of a program she started, every teacher who feels more appreciated because of an event she organized, and every parent who feels more connected because of a community she helped build. Ashley, this is your legacy to our district. You truly define what it means to be a super volunteer. Your optimism, kindness, and unwavering commitment to our district's mission really sets the standard for our entire community and really inspires our newer families. You've shown us that one person working with love and dedication can make a profound difference in the lives of so many. So at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Lambert and Mr. Ruben Tolles to come on up. I'm sure that you have some words that you would like to say. Sure. The more the merrier. And no, you're here. You're the star.
Well, Ashley, Gina did a wonderful job summarizing everything you've done at our school. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of our faculty and staff. You've made a tremendous difference in the lives of high school teachers. You made a difference in my life. I really appreciate being able to come into this role last year, and things were already in motion in terms of honoring our staff, celebrating our staff, just really respecting them. I just think you've made a huge impact on the life of our school, and I'm happy to have worked with you, and thank you for working with Jody Brazzi all those years. It was just such a pleasure, and you've set a great example, and I hope we can continue to have that type of impact in our schools. Thank you, Ashley. Really appreciate you.
I am so excited to be able to be here and help to honor and thank you. And if this ceremony takes 5 or 10 minutes, then I think we may be spending something like 1/10,000th, or no, 1/60,000th, a conservative estimate of the amount of time that you have invested in our schools, and our kids, and our teachers, and our staff. And so, we're almost there. But I just, when I think back of your time at Orange Grove, I can't think of a thing you were not involved in, though I think you had some official titles, but I remember seeing you involved in everything, and if you saw a need, you would just jump in. And I was always amazed at really your relentless joy that you brought to everything. You just elevated any team that you were a part of because you just appreciated people for what they were bringing, whether it was little, whether it was big. And reminded me often, a harried middle school administrator at times, like that this work is actually really fun. And you would just spontaneously reach out directly to staff members. And that meant so much to have, a parent really just extend some kind words in difficult times, but also in good times, and to celebrate what we were doing. So I am eternally grateful. Our kids, our schools are better for your presence, and I'm so glad that we get to honor you tonight. Thank you.
Mrs. Bowling wanted me to add, once a Mustang, always a Mustang.
Yes.
So she wanted me to add that.
Yes, and I have to tell Amy Kraus, so I've told you this before, but it's fun to look back 16 years later. She was our tour guide when we first toured Manzanita Elementary School. So there's I could just go on and on and on.
Circle.
We know how Tucson is, we know how small the community is, we know how tight-knit it is, but the connections have just been what inspired me, but I think it's what the joy comes from, right? Is that there's always a familiar face, there's always someone there ahead of us, guiding us and that sort of thing. So it was, an honor and a pleasure, and it was, like I said to Dr. Bartlett, it was quite a surprise to get the email because we were sort of, in retirement and had done
Don't you
all
know
our-
you can't ever retire from CFSD?
Yes, yes.
Very true.
Trust me, we will always, I was telling a good friend who happens to be a third grade teacher at Manzanita recently that the week of back to school, we've only just recently come through that, I had at least half a dozen texts from sort of new parents who were like, what do we do about this at the high school? How much do I put on the food cart? So I thought maybe it'll never end. Maybe I'll still always get those fun, they were old neighbors who have moved, but their child is first time high school student. That particular text just tickled me. Because it was even fun to sort of reach back into the archives of my brain. Oh, do this. Wait, let me ask my kid, do this. And I think all, CFSD parents are doing it. I think we're, one of my favorite questions to ask forever, to ask parents, new parents that I would meet in dozens of different ways, was how did you come to Manzanita, to Orange Grove, to Catfoot? And the stories always just tickled me. We all have our story of why we're here, what brought us here, what sort of sacrifices were made. I always had that in the back of my head, the parents. I had countless parents who would bring stuff to my house. Granted, I live in a very easy to get to place. Most people are driving past us. But, parents whose kids, they live in Green Valley, they live in Sarita, they live up in Red Rock, families who you can identify want so desperately to be a part of our communities, but don't necessarily have the same, easy access that we might take for granted if we do live, bicycle distance from Orange Grove, things that I would say, just drop it off here or drop it off there. And the stories are always what motivated me to make sure we were taking care of, as you said, every family, every student. And it's been an easy, enjoyable ride. Well, not easy. Actually, there were years it was not easy. There were a couple of FFO president years at the high school that was like, keep going, keep going, keep going. But those were early on, and that's actually what drove me to staff appreciation, because I was like, okay, when I go out, I want to go out on a high. That's actually what inspired the mural at Manzanita too. Is last year, what can we do? What can we do that's fun? So, it's been a joy. Thank you.
So we would like to present this copy of the nomination letter. There is a lovely certificate. Yes, my son friends. Absolutely. And truly what I actually really love is
Look at that.
I know, right? Volunteer for 15 years and get teaching. We do actually genuinely need it. It does. In many ways, our support because it's such a big world difference, which you absolutely do. So thank you. Would you just care to join us in a
Can we get
photograph?
pictures?
Photograph time.
We will join you in a photograph.
Yeah, do they want?
Any points to celebrate the balloon?
Mark cracks me up.
Make the law. all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley, for
Thank you.
everything you do. What a lovely presentation. Thank
That
you
was
so
lovely.
much. That was beautiful. Okay, the next section of our board meeting is public comments. I have no purple sheets, and it looks like I have no one who has signed up online to speak during our public comment session. And so I assume everybody who's here is good and all set. And if so, I'm going to go ahead and move beyond our public comment to our consent agenda with just a reminder that we do have a public hearing later on our budget revision, and we'll reopen an opportunity for anyone in the audience who wishes to speak at that point as well. All right, so we are going to move on to our consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they need to pull from the consent agenda so that we can provide more discussion on those items? No? Anything, Amy? Okay, so the consent agenda is presented. Is there someone who would like to make a motion for us?
I will make a motion. I move that the governing board, approve consent agenda items 5.1, the governing board August 12, 2025, regular meeting minutes as presented. 5.2, the governing board August 12, 2025, executive session meeting minutes as presented. 5.3, the expense voucher memorandum as presented. 5.4, the field trip request memorandum as presented. 5.5, the fundraising request memorandum as presented. 5.6, the personnel memorandum as presented. 5.7, the acceptance with gratitude of the gifts and donations memorandum as presented. 5.8, the first quarter tax credit eligible fees as presented. 5.9, the School Facilities Division Award to Johnson Controls for the fire alarm system replacement at Canyon View Elementary School in the amount of $1,026,251.37 as presented. And 5.10, the School Facilities Division Award to Midstate Mechanical and Kelly Wright and Associates for the HVAC controls replacement at Catalina Foothills High School, totaling $1,360,210 as presented.
Do you have a motion for our several consent agenda items for approval this evening? If there's no further discussion, do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We're going to then move on to item 6, which is our unfinished business. For new folks that are in our audience, we have a procedure of always doing 2 readings of items that come before the board. There's a couple of exceptions to that, but most of the time we will bring something to the board. We'll discuss it, and then it'll come back again for a second reading after the board members have had an opportunity to think about it for a little bit, and administrators have had the opportunity to perhaps tweak the presentation or the policy. So we are on second readings in item number 6 that we refer to as unfinished business. Our first item is approval of revisions to policy EB, Environmental and Safety Program. This is our second reading and a potential action item for this evening, and Dr. Denise Bartlett will present.
Thank you. After the first reading, there were no additional recommended revisions. So the revisions that I'm recommending tonight have all been presented at the first reading. Specifically, the House bill that expanded ARS 15-254 regarding the expansion of purchasing options for school safety programs to include technology, training, and infrastructure improvements. So there are 3 specific parts to this. Schools may submit proposals to support the cost of having a school resource officer, a juvenile probation officer, or a school safety officer, as long as all the requirements are met. School resource officer, they define the school resource officer as a full authority reserve peace officer who is certified by the Arizona Peace Officer Standards and Training Board, or an individual who was previously employed as a peace officer in Arizona, who retired in good standing and who is assigned to participate in school safety program by the law enforcement agency pursuant to the revised statute. They also included the definition of a school safety officer as a school resource officer who is working in an off-duty capacity. And then it also included requirements for school districts who receive monies for an approved school safety program to develop an emergency response plan every 5 years and to complete a school safety assessment using the approved safety assessment provider. And then just minor changes to the policy included the title change. Instead of being called Environmental and Safety Program, it's being changed to just the Safety Program. And then there were some grammatical changes in that first paragraph to clear up and provide better readability. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Or Amy? Anything? Okay. And just to clarify, oh, go ahead. Did you have any comments you wanted to make or any questions, Amy? Okay. And I just wanted to clarify that we did determine last 2 weeks ago that we haven't actually applied for any of the funds for school resource officer, but that we do have school resource officers in our places at the middle school and the high school, but they also support our elementary school as well.
Correct. In Pima County, they are funded through the Sheriff's Department. So
Lovely.
we don't need to apply for monies to provide those for our schools, which is different than in Maricopa County.
Right.
That's most of them are under the grant program.
Under the grant. Okay. All right, well, if there's no further conversation or discussion, is there a motion on this policy change?
Make a motion. I move that the governing board approve the revisions to policy EB, Environmental and Safety Program, as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we're going to move on to item 6.2, also a second reading. This is approval of revisions to policy IHA, the basic instructional program. Potential action item this evening, and Cheryl Castro, our Executive Director of Curriculum and Assessment, is at the podium.
Hello, and thank you. Presented for your approval is Policy IHA, Basic Instructional Programs, which has been revised in accordance with ARS 15-710-02 regarding 9/11 Education Day. No changes were requested or made since the last reading, so I'll be presenting the same information that you heard 2 weeks ago. So aside from 2 corrections to punctuation, the sole change in wording to the policy can be found under the heading Observance Day on page 2 of the policy or page 50 of your packet, and specifies that 9/11 Education Day instruction shall be provided to students in grades 7 through 12. Previously, 9/11 Education Day instruction was provided to students in kindergarten through grade 12. So if you go to the policy now on page 2 or page 50, and go down to the middle of the page, and go to the second sentence under Observance Days, you'll see that the change now reads, on 9/11 Education Day, each public school that provides instruction to students in any of grades 7 through 12 shall provide instruction to students in each of grades 7 through 12 on the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. And with that, if you have other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Not a question, but a clarification. This is in response to legislation that made
Yes.
this happen. It's
Yes.
not something that we're deciding.
No, this is ARS 15-710-02.
This is the vast majority of our policy
Correct.
changes are driven by changes to legislation that occurred in the prior session. Not all, but quite a bit. Other comments, questions, asking for clarification? I keep looking at Amy over there. Amy's right there in that camera. Amy, anything? Okay. All right. If there's nothing further, is there a motion for this policy?
Make a motion.
I move the governing board approve the revisions to policy IHA, basic instructional program, as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move right along to item 6.3, approval of revisions to policy JLF, reporting child abuse / child protection. Again, a second reading. And this is reminiscent of our earlier training session on governing board members becoming mandatory reporters, which is a change for the first time. And we'll turn it over to Mindy Westover.
Okay, so following our first reading, we did have 2 small changes, and they were added to the new DCS section. In the first paragraph, a sentence was added stating that the identifications mentioned must be provided before an interview can take place. And then the final sentence in the second paragraph of the same section was also modified to provide specific details on the expectations processes to verify a DCS worker through the DCS office. So those changes were adjusted following our first reading, and the revisions that stayed the same were there were key policy updates, additions of a new section outlining the procedures for when a DCS caseworker visits a school to interview a child. There were 3 specific portions. The caseworker must present official DCS identification and may be asked to show a valid driver's license or state-issued ID. The second one was that schools may not retain any personal identifying information, but may keep a record of the DCS's identification. And then the third one was if a caseworker is unable to provide identification, they must give contact information for the DCS office, and the school must verify the caseworker's identity and employment, and that's where we added the portion about how they must verify that through a photo ID. These revisions bring district policy into full alignment with the updated statute, which is bringing upon the recommended changes. With that, I'll take any questions that you have.
I do. And thank you so much for the revisions with regards to confirming identity in the instance the caseworker cannot provide like a state-issued or some sort of governmental issued identity. I think that goes a long way toward addressing our concerns, so thank you for that. Specifically that the department office must provide a digital image of the caseworker so that there can be that verification of the person who is saying who they are, and this is what that person looks like, that can be matched up. There is one question that I have, which if I missed it last time, I apologize. It's okay. The paragraph right prior to where that was made, it's highlighted in yellow. So it's at the bottom of page 2 of the attachment, not sure which page that is of the board book. Under the heading of Department of Child Safety Caseworker Visits, and the paragraph begins, when a Department of Child Safety caseworker visits a child, ... At the end of that paragraph, it says the school may keep a digital or physical record of the caseworker's identification. To check, do we mean for that to be may versus shall?
They may keep a copy of it. They don't have to.
But don't we want them to keep a copy of it? That's my question. Isn't the policy?
This particular portion is saying that we cannot keep their personal identification, but we can keep a copy of their DCS if we may. I don't know that. Well, quite frequently, this is specifically talking about if a mandatory report is made, a DCS caseworker comes to take that report, we might not ever, that person is not commonly visiting the sites. So I don't know that the site is in practice of taking identifications and keeping them. So I think that they may do that. They have the right to do that, but I don't know that that has been the practice.
Okay, so we're not asking that we do keep a copy of it.
No.
And we're okay with that? That's the part that I want to check, is that we're okay
Yeah.
with this being an option
Yeah, I
rather
think
than
so,
a requirement?
because they're gonna have the paperwork, and we get written paperwork from them.
Yes.
So
Okay,
we don't need their
So like
identification.
covered
Yes.
that way. Okay, gotcha, thank you for that. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last time, or I would have asked last time.
Absolutely.
Good point. Okay. Gotcha, thanks, Amy. Yeah, it does, yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm looking there because your image is
So
there. I know I
difficult.
should be
I am
looking
too.
here.
Looking
Let's
at
look in the
over there.
video.
All you can ever see is our profiles when you're up there. Okay, any other, yeah, go ahead, Amy. Okay. Any other comments or questions or suggestions regarding this policy? It is an action item for this evening, so I would entertain a motion from someone.
I'm happy to make a motion. I move the governing board approve the revisions to policy JLF, reporting child abuse, stroke child protection as presented.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, and then we are moving on to item 6.4, which is the approval of revisions to policy JLIF, sex offender notification. This is again a second reading, and we're turning it back over to our Associate Superintendent, Mindy Westover.
Okay, this again is a second reading. So following the first reading, we did make an addition. It was made a suggestion to align with the current formatting of the policy. The description low risk was placed in parentheses after level 1 offender, just to keep the conventions there. So these revisions to policy JLIF, sex offender notifications, has been updated to reflect recent changes to ARS 133825. These revisions include the addition of notification requirements related to level 1 sex offenders and an additional notification requirement. So the two notification changes were a bullet that bullet A now includes level 1 sex offenders who have been convicted of a dangerous crime against children. And then an additional provision in bullet point A requires notification to a child's school if the offender has a legal custody of a child. And with that, I will take any questions you might have about this policy.
No questions.
Amy? I just don't want to forget about you up there, Amy. That's why I keep throwing it at you. All right. Fairly simple change, but if there is a motion to approve this policy,
I move that the governing board approve the revisions to policy JLIF, sex offender notification as presented.
second, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us out of unfinished business. Thanks for the presentations. And we're going to move into item number 7, which is our new business. So these will be, we're going to start first with item 7.1, our public hearing on revisions to the fiscal year 2026 budget revision number 1. And this is the time and place that is fixed on our agenda to receive public input regarding the fiscal year 2026 budget. That is the fiscal year that we are currently in. If there are any comments from anyone in attendance at this public hearing wishing to address the governing board regarding the fiscal year 2026 budget, this is the time and place to address and respond to those comments. And a copy of the fiscal year 2026 budget is included with item 7.2 of the agenda for public view. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that wishes to comment on the 2026 budget revision? make sure there's nobody online here. I see no one online. I see nobody jumping up to talk about our budget this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'm going to move on to item 7.2, which is the board's approval of the revisions to the fiscal year 2026 budget, revision number 1. This is an action item for this evening, and Lisa Tatel, our Director of Finance, is at the podium. Welcome back, Lisa.
Good evening. I am reporting on the first budget revision for fiscal year 26. I ask that you please save any questions until the end of the presentation. On page 1, the cover sheet, under line 1 of total budgeted expenditures and aggregate school district budget limit, there is an increase of about $191,000 in the M&O fund. This increase is primarily due to the state of Arizona now funding the $75 million add-on funding that was previously included under Proposition 123. So further explanation regarding this addition is explained on page 8 of the expenditure budget. On line 2, on the same page, unrestricted capital, or DAA, increased by $1.4 million compared to the 2026 adopted budget. This change reflects the district transferring capital dollars back from M&O because our projected M&O carry forward turned out to be larger than originally budgeted. And again, additional details are further explained on page 8. On page 5, unrestricted capital outlay, on line 1, under the budget fiscal year column, capital override increased by about $236,000 due to a larger fiscal year 25 carry forward. On line 7, under the property column, we added $7,565 in expenditures for food service equipment purchases. On page 6, which is other funds, on line 9, under the bond building budget fiscal year column, total projected expenditures increased by about $489,000. This is due to additional school buses that were originally expected in fiscal year 25, but actually arrived and had to be paid for at the beginning of fiscal year 26. On page 7, which is the other funds expenditures, on line 30, under the budget fiscal year column, expenditures increased by $1.767 million. This increase accounts for higher projected fiscal year 26 construction costs funded by the Arizona School Facilities Oversight Board, which you probably know because you approve them at every meeting. On page 8, the calculations of the fiscal year 26 general budget limit. On line 2C, under maintenance and operation, the DAA transfer to M&O decreased from $1.45 million to $0. This is because the district no longer needs to move capital dollars into M&O in order to balance the budget for fiscal year 26. On line 8B of the same page, the budget balance carry forward was originally budgeted at $2 million, but ended up being $3.3 million, an increase of $1.3 million. This happened because teacher salary increases were calculated on total gross salaries, not just the portion funded directly through M&O. That change resulted in a higher carry forward balance than expected, which allowed us to transfer dollars back into DAA. And then finally, on line 10A, new fiscal year 26 funding was added to M&O after the state finalized its 2026 budget. The state is now covering the $75 million add-on funding that Proposition 123 used to provide. So even though Proposition 123 expired, the funding continued into fiscal year 26 from the state's general fund. A portion of this additional funding, about $150,000, plus the $1.3 million additional carry forward, equals the $1.45 million DAA transfer to M&O that was originally included in the 2026 adopted budget. Thank you. Do you
Does that
have
make
any
sense?
questions?
Does that make sense? So we're using, so 2 million of the budget, we budgeted 2 million of DAA in our budget, so that was to balance the budget.
Right.
We transferred DAA to do salary increases, okay?
Right.
When we've done it, what we've realized now is that we transferred too much, okay? We didn't have, in the carryover, we only had 1.3 million. We actually needed 1.45 million. So we took some of that new funding from the 348,000 to add to that 1.3 million to get the 1.45 million to go back into DAA. So now our DAA is at zero, that we didn't transfer any.
The transfer into the DAA is zero.
Correct.
Or from
From
DAA to
DAA.
zero for this current
So
budget.
we have about 191,000 of this new money that's now left over. And that's the additional money on page 1 that you see, that difference. Small changes.
Questions? I don't really have questions, just a couple of little things just to clarify to make sure I'm understanding it in my mind. And I'm back on page 7, and I'm looking at the building renewal grant number. And I'm assuming that this number now is updated for the pretty substantial building renewal fund grants that we've already approved for this year. We just undershot it when we were budgeting how much money we thought we might get from that building renewal grant, correct?
Yeah, I don't know until you know
Okay.
when we're gonna get this.
So that's all we're doing is catching up the budget to adequately represent the funds that we've gotten this year. This could change again.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the bus thing on page 6, this was nothing more than a timing issue. We budgeted for it in 2025 fiscal year. Didn't happen, the buses didn't come in time, so we just simply needed to move the expenditure into the 2026
That is
fiscal
correct.
year. Okay, gotcha. And then, when we did the final budget or salary reconciliation, we had more money than we thought we did, correct?
Well, what happened is, so some of our salaries are paid for from the classroom site fund. We use a portion.
And instructional improvement fund as well?
Well,
or-
we do instructional improvement, but we calculated the salaries based on all of the money coming from M&O, which we didn't account for the money
fact
that was
we
coming from
fund
classroom site
quite a
fund.
bit from the
So that will be a
classroom
change
site fund.
in this year when we calculate those.
So, okay, and
salaries.
so that's the reason why we had overestimated how much we were
Correct.
going to need from the DAA transfer. And we're now in the happy circumstance that we can send it all back
That is
because
correct.
we have more in the M&O fund than we had originally projected. That's great news. That's great to hear. And then the only other question I had was on the prior 1, 2, 3 funds. We didn't include that in our original budget process because 1, 2, 3 hadn't been renewed. Is that why we decided not to include those funds in there?
Yeah, the proposition ended
Right.
at the end of 25.
And we were probably just not sure whether the state would fund for 1, 2, 3, and now we know for sure the state is gonna replace those funds, and we can safely put them back in our budget.
Yeah, I was specifically told not to include it initially in the budget.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all I wanted to clarify.
We didn't know how much it would be either.
Right.
It is.
Right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Those are very helpful explanations
Yes.
that you provide along the way. Thank you.
Oh, and I just want to say, I love the page 1, page 2, page 3.
Definitely, definitely.
We're getting better every time.
It's very great. This is an action item, folks, so there's a motion at the bottom of the, Amy's raising her hand. How you doing, Amy? Right.
So I'm pretty sure that they used the budget revision in December because that would be at the time you would know your actual carry forward, like we pretty much do right now. And then you could then determine if you needed to move the dollars back. Because that, I mean, a lot of districts probably do the same thing. But last year when that report came out, we legislatively weren't required to do a budget revision because we were under the 1% variance in the general budget limit. So I think this year we will end up doing a revision to make sure. But
This year, if they take a snapshot, it will say we've transferred 0.
Right.
Where
And our-
last
put
year
it back.
it was 1.8 million. That
and
was
our
the high
capital
risk.
budget's gonna look very, very healthy.
Correct,
It's not going to be flagged as potentially inadequate.
correct.
But
We're hoping to avoid that high risk determination. We weren't in high risk because
You
we
were
had,
never in high
because we
risk.
had bond dollars and other things that we have to spend.
Yep.
if they used the May data, it would have been that, the report would have been much better. But they use it, it comes out in January. So they pull the December revision.
Again, this is an action item. Someone would like to make a motion?
Sure. I move the governing board approve the fiscal year 2026 expenditure budget revision number 1 as presented.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving revision number 1 to our fiscal 2026 year budget, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, we are now moving on to item 7.3, which is a first reading, consideration of revisions to policy IJ and regulation IJR, instructional resources and materials. And we're going to turn this back over to Cheryl Castro.
Thank you. So presented for your consideration are the revisions to policy IJ and regulation IJR, instructional resources and materials, which have been updated to include language related to parent-guardian access to instructional materials as outlined in the recent Mahmood versus Taylor decision. So I'd like to start with one key change on both documents. So if you can scroll to pages 1 to 2 of IJ, and actually it's on IJ, it's the very last word at the bottom of the page and then the top paragraph on IJ. So that would be page 2 of the policy or page 80 if you're looking at your packet. And then on the regulation, you probably noticed identical language on page 2 of IJR, which is page 82, is that what that says? Yeah, page 82. of your packet. So that language was added to clarify that a parent or legal guardian may object to an activity or learning material, and this is the quote, based on the assertion that the materials or activity are harmful, including because the materials or activity would question the family's beliefs or practices in sex, morality, or religion. And you'll notice on IJR that we still have the language that was there before about sexually explicit content, violent content, profane or vulgar language as well. So that was a key change. If there's any questions about that change, we can talk about it now or later.
So just to be clear, this change was made to ensure adherence to the legal requirement.
Yes, this is a legal requirement. So you can think about that one for a minute, but let's go on to IJ. There were other policy changes to IJ. As usual, we changed parent guardian to parent legal guardian throughout the document. Then if you look at page 1 of IJ, paragraphs 4 and 5, and that would be page 79 if you're in your packet, we just clarified some information about the use of purchased and school-issued books and property. So you'll see that that first paragraph, paragraph 4 on page 1 or page 79, says that students may purchase at the price paid for the books as necessary for personal use at home and school if they wish to do so. It's not a requirement, but if they want to, they can. And then the next paragraph talks about our school-issued books and how parents and students are responsible for any loss or damage to those materials. If you move to the last full paragraph on page 1, directly above the heading, access to instructional material by the parent or legal guardian, that last full paragraph that's bolded, you'll see that it was modified to clarify that parent permission is required to use video, audio, or electronic materials that may be inappropriate for the age of the student. And then it's notes there, see IJNDR technology resources for the classifications, and those are as follows. For grades K to 5, it's a rating of G. For grades 6 to 8, it's a rating of G, PG, or TV PG. And for grades 9 through 12, it's a rating of G, PG, TV PG, PG-13, or TV 14. Those were the changes to the policy. If you'd like, we can stop there and talk about any questions you might have about the policy.
Anybody? So when you say student may purchase at the price paid for the books, such books as are necessary, purchasing from the district?
Yes, because we
Okay.
typically get a better price than a student would if they were to go out and try to buy a book on their own.
Oh, so you can source that.
Mhm.
Okay. I did not know that.
Sure, Amy? That's correct. That's correct. Yes. They can opt the student out of an activity or material. That's correct. Yes, it would be impossible for us to determine what each unique family holds to be something that would be a qualifier under these assertions.
Correct.
At any of them.
Sure.
So to be crystal clear, the onus has been and remains on the family, on the parents or legal guardian.
Yes.
Correct.
And I would assume that their opt-out request would have to be specific to specific material or a specific activity.
Correct.
And parents have access to what all of those materials are going to be used in their child's classes and what materials are going to be used in their child's classes.
We're still working with all of the teachers to get their materials uploaded, but we have our district resources, our approved resources online, our core resources.
Yes.
And then any supplemental resources that the teachers use are going to be in their materials that the parents can view.
Okay. So is that something that's relatively new, the supplementary materials?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
The materials aren't new. The process
Materials
for
are new, just them being on.
the process for
Yes.
yes.
So would you like to move on to IJR? Okay, let's move on to IJR.
Looks like Gina might have something real quick.
Oh, go ahead, Gina.
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, let's go to IJR. There were a few changes to IJR. Again, we changed parent legal guardian to parents, or parent legal guardian replaced parents or guardians, of course, through the whole document. If you go to page 81 of the packet, which is page 1 of IJR, and you look at the last sentence of the first paragraph, it's that introductory paragraph directly under availability of and access to instructional materials by parents, legal guardians. We struck such access shall be governed and just rewrote it as requests must follow these guidelines, just to improve the flow and readability a little bit. And then, and again, with the idea of flow and readability, we added 2 new section headings. One of them is currently adopted materials. The other is materials being considered for use. So the materials that are going to be like on a 60-day preview that are coming up, right? Versus the currently adopted one. Previously, all of these were in one big section, and it was sometimes a little confusing to figure out which indicator was referring to which type of resource. So we just added those 2 subheadings for a little bit more clarity. And then we reorganized that content so that the currently adopted indicators were under that heading, and the materials being considered for use had the correct bullets under them. If you look at the first bullet under currently adopted materials, we revised that to emphasize the requests for access to instructional materials must be submitted in writing to the principal's office. That's the only change to that, that if a parent or guardian has an issue with a material, they have to submit their request in writing to the principal. And then the 5th bullet under currently adopted materials was revised to clarify that digital resources may be viewed during school hours on school premises. They can't remove the digital materials. They have to be viewed there during the school day. They can check out other materials as they wish for 48 hours. And then if you move to the last 4 bullets under objections to learning, so you need to move to page 2 of the regulation, which is page 82 in your packet, and you count the last 4 bullets under that objections to learning. It's almost to the bottom of the page. The last 3 you're on page 2, and then it moves over into page 3. These 4 bullets were streamlined. They were changed to streamline the process that parents have to go through when they're objecting to a material or to an activity. And so instead of before it was written where they submit it to the principal and the principal submits it to the superintendent and the superintendent goes back to the principal, instead we rewrote it this way. You'll see in that last line of the 3rd to last bullet on page 2, the principal, in consultation with the superintendent or designee, will determine if the student will be removed from the activity. So that was just to streamline things a little bit. Then the principal will inform the parent legal guardian of the decision, and if the decision is non-removal, will inform the parent or legal guardian of the reasons for non-removal. Yeah, those were the only real big changes to that particular section. If you have questions about IJR, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
I have a couple. Is there an expectation for lead time for a parent to inform the principal?
Lead time meaning,
Like, 2 days before?
To opt out?
3 days?
I think they need to give, there is nothing mentioned in the regulation or the policy about lead time, but I would think that we would need a reasonable amount, like one could not submit an objection and ask for it to be carried out within 5 minutes. It's not gonna happen, or maybe
But it
even a
also puts
day.
onus on the teachers then. How far in advance do they have their materials posted? So I think that was part of the reasoning why we didn't put a time frame on there, because it does put a strain for the teachers to have it. If we say a week prior, then that means those learning materials, the teacher has to have those available a week prior, which that's not really feasible.
Great, thank you. And then my second question is how does the principal inform the parent or legal guardian? Is that via phone call? Is that in writing? How
It's usually in writing.
it's documented in that
Yes.
manner?
Once a parent requests access to some materials, how soon do we get those materials to them?
If there's anything written in the policy, I would assume we do it as we do everything else within usually 24 hours. We expect teachers to answer emails, and I'm supposed to answer my emails within 24 hours. If there were any delay to that, I imagine they would let the parent know that they need a little bit more time.
Okay. That's 24 hours, business hours? Not
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Good point, Jacqueline.
Amy, I think you made a motion to speak? No? Okay.
I do have a
ahead.
question. And this is under the third bullet down from objections to learning materials and activities on page 2. Although the student may be unable to make up for the missed activity or material, no penalty will accrue to the student, grades or credit, and then with exception if it is too extended. Given that we are now broadening the categories for all of these opt-outs and exceptions, is there a potential risk, or is there a need to clarify that this is our grades or credit, but anything that is, for example, an AP test or a CTE, something where there's another body involved in issuing some kind of credit, that falls outside of this? For example, if you're taking, because I see you're
I'm trying to
Okay.
follow.
So here's a hypothetical.
Okay.
Let's say that you are taking AP psychology, and you're learning certain things in AP psychology, and perhaps some of those things might conflict with some of your religious beliefs, and you've therefore opted your child out of that. And those things happen to be on the AP test, and by not answering in accordance with what's been instructed in the classroom, you do not get that credit.
I see what you're saying now,
You see,
yeah.
it's outside of anything
Yeah,
that.
we have no control over what College Board decides to put on their tests, so maybe we should put in CFSD grades or credit.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
It's because the College Board dictates the curriculum as well.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a good
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for walking me through that. I was lost at first.
Me too.
Clarified quickly for me. I love the example.
I know.
That helped. Good teaching strategy.
Do you have anything else?
I do want to clarify on the first bullet point under objections to zoning materials and activities, that we are requesting that the objection is in writing and specific in its description. Just to be clear, we are not requiring an explanation of why something is deemed harmful. We're simply requiring that it be specific enough to be actionable.
That is correct.
That's what
Great work, as always. I do have a couple of questions, if I may. Continuing on from where Tom was at, do we stipulate in here, and if we do, I apologize, I missed it. We say that the objection needs to be in writing. However, do we stipulate to whom it needs to be sent? Should it be sent to the teacher? Should it be sent to the principal?
The objection is sent to the principal.
Do we state that
We
somewhere?
don't. We just say that the principal will inform and that they'll be in consultation with the superintendent.
You don't say where the parent should
All
send it.
such objections shall be directed to the principal of the school in which the student is enrolled, so
Okay,
it
great. Where
says
is that?
It's
I missed
on the
that.
fourth bullet.
fourth
the
bullet
first
down.
sentence.
Can we maybe even think about reordering then? So that
Sure.
we have
I think
all the
that makes
information
sense,
about
yeah.
like how to make the objection together. And then good. So that's one thing. And then the next thing, it's not actually related to the policies. I mean, it is, but it's not in the policy itself. I'm curious, what happens if a student is then removed from, so the parent asks for their student to be removed from a specific lesson or activity, and that's agreed to. Does that student then go to study hall during that time period, or can you just talk us through, practically speaking, what happens with that student during that particular class time?
I think it would depend upon what they were asking to be removed from. So if it's a very small piece of the lesson, they might even be asked to go to the hallway and do an alternate assignment or an alternate reading, and then come back in the room when one of the 2 slides that there are objections to are finished. If it's something that is a longer lesson, they would have to go someplace else to be supervised by an adult.
To the library or a study hall, and given a comparable assignment that
If
doesn't include
possible.
the objection.
So I take your point or your response as it pertains to like middle and high school students, but this could also happen at elementary level. So the student can't then be asked to just sit in the hall as a first
No.
grader or kindergartner. So,
They usually go to the library.
okay.
It goes to the library, and they're given an alternate assessment or assignment to do that is comparable to what they would be doing in the class without the objectionable material or objective.
The alternate assignment, the teacher prepares that. Is it reviewed by anyone before it is given to the student to make sure that it does
But that's not
meet the
objectionable.
objections?
Um,
Or legal guardian?
Could you rephrase the question?
So a student is opted out of a lesson and given comparable material, prepared by the teacher is my assumption.
Mhm.
Does anyone review the comparable material to make sure that it too may not be objectionable?
Although not written, I would assume the principals, that would be the principal's role to
But there's no
ensure.
requirement to get the alternative assignment approved by
By
the
the
parent?
parent?
No,
It's not required in the statute?
no, because they're objecting to this specific material or learning activity. So we're providing an alternate that is not that. That's not their objection. I mean, I guess they could say, well, I want to see
wanna know
that
what you are
before.
gonna put them into,
Yeah, before you put them into that, I want to see what that is. They could ask for that.
It'd be a pretty lengthy process.
It could
That's
be.
why I was asking about.
It'd be a
will
pretty
we
lengthy process
Yeah.
with, parents needing access to the materials and then the review of the review of the objection and then the determination of what the alternative a lesson's gonna be and where the kid's gonna go. And then are the parents okay with the alternative? I can see that this could be a really long
Mhm.
process.
Is there a legal requirement for there to be a like-for-like alternative?
No.
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 In fact, it states that,
I mean, we say it's an alternate activity. I think because it's implied, well, it's not implied, it's stated that it's not going to impact their grade, it's not going to impact their other thing, that we have to make it somewhat comparable to what they're doing in the classroom. It has to tie to the content in some way. We can't just be, oh, you're gonna read that book while we're over here doing this content-based lesson. So although it doesn't state that it has to be, that is our practice to provide a comparable activity. Not exactly the same. And that's why we can't guarantee that they're gonna have that same experience. And although it's not gonna impact their grade, it's gonna impact some of their content knowledge.
So then they couldn't be tested or if a review or a quiz or a test was given on content that a student was removed from as an alternate test or quiz given on the content.
That part, or that question is
That
removed,
just for
or
that student.
Removed or replaced
yes,
with something
replaced or removed.
But an alternate test or quiz or writing assignment now needs to be prepared as well.
If that's part of that learning activity that was occurring in the classroom,
Class presentation, whatever, okay.
And all of this is case-by-case basis.
case by case.
I mean, and I do know, sorry,
Oh, go ahead, Amy.
To Gina's point, we call out specifically that the objection includes a statement that the parent legal guardian understands that the educational information and concepts may not be covered in any matter or form. The student may not be able to make up, we basically are saying in our existing policy that by opting out, you are stating you understand there may not be that same level of
Correct.
understanding.
We will try as best we can, but it may not be.
I'm hung up on this. I'm hung up on this situation where a parent or legal guardian requests their child be removed from a certain activity or assignment. And then and that's a grade 2, right? I'm with you to there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're offered an alternative, but that alternative, surely there then needs to be, like, somehow the parent or legal guardian needs to have the opportunity to opt their child out of that as well. And so I can't get.
I would imagine there's a
hung up on that
conversation
part.
that, okay, we're gonna opt your child out. This is the alternative activity we're gonna provide them. There's gonna be that conversation before it actually occurs. So
Okay.
this will be the activity that we're going to provide them instead
Okay.
at that time.
Or potentially, I've seen where choices are given. Okay, this or this. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't want your child to read this text, these are the other texts that have similar theme but don't have those same specific content. So yes, I would say there is frequently a conversation about the alternative activity assessment materials. I don't know that it's not specifically stated in the policy, but that is oftentimes what you see is, here's the choices.
That conversation.
Okay.
I do have another question.
Go ahead.
Oftentimes in classes, your students' peers give presentations and be on a topic of their choice. How do we account for Sally giving a presentation that Nick might find, because you don't know what, it's a topic of the student's choice, for example. What do we do in an example if a parent post-class then objects?
After the fact?
Yes,
Well,
because we don't know what
Right.
Sally's presentation is going to be about.
Mhm.
That could possibly,
we would hope that the teacher understands what the
Okay.
presentation is about. And has a heads up about that, and maybe, it might be objectionable. But if it's after the fact, then we would have to explain to the parent how that occurred.
I'm not sure the policy is referring to our instructional
Our
materials and
curriculum.
learning materials or activities that we have either,
Yep.
that are currently approved and those that are being considered for approval. The student work, the work that students produce doesn't, in my mind, does not fall under those two
I would agree.
areas.
thank you,
I think that's the distinction there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would ask, given that this is first reading, correct?
Mhm.
It'd be great to just
So
check
those-
that understanding before you come back to the second reading, if I may make that request, please.
As far as student presented content versus.
Differentiating between
Right.
student generated work and content.
As a student could be peer reviewing another student's, 5-page essay or something.
But I
Maybe
think-
you're shaking your head.
Let me
What's
see.
the-
Okay.
first ASBA's guidance on the new legislation, and then there were probably 1, 2, 3, 4
No.
for the case. Mhm.
And then we did consult with our attorney.
Mhm.
Yes.
I do think on the student presented content, what gives me a little bit of comfort there is, I think the underlying presumption from what I've read about Mahmoud v. Taylor is more about what is, when it is approved curriculum, it is basically endorsed as such by the district, and that if anything a student is presenting, that same presumption does not apply. It is not saying this is not a belief, this is fact.
And I want to just say, we have student discipline policies that prohibit them from using vulgar, inappropriate language. So if we had something that, and I realize that we can't predict what someone would be offended, but I think we do have policies that, you know, that would prohibit a student from maybe using some of those elements and some of their own work. So I do think we have other policies that might help us in that situation. But I was just, you know, thinking if a student was to use something extremely inappropriate, we do have other things in place.
For that, yeah.
Define inappropriate.
And we do have to do that.
I realize we can't cover all the bases, but I do think that, you know, watching my daughter matriculate through the school district and, you know, peer reviewing papers, some of the content, she said, you know, I can see that some people might have objections to some of that stuff.
Yes. No, I'm just thinking of my own daughter, yes.
So that is something we'll look into,
We'll
you know,
look into
before
it,
we come
yes.
back for a second reading, just to make sure we're
Yes.
on solid footing, because
Yes.
I think your interpretation of this, you know,
Mhm.
if it were up to me, that would be my
It
interpretation
does make
of
sense.
this.
Right.
But let's make sure we're on solid
Will
ground with
do.
that as well. Anything else, folks?
I have one other clarification to go back to our previous discussion about the procedure of getting an alternate assignment approved potentially. And was kind of going back and forth in my head on that it's more a courtesy, it sounds like, and an obligation. It's something that is very much a matter of, it depends on the case as to how much that needs to be discussed. And it seems to me like it doesn't necessarily belong in the policy because that would obligate something that often would not be be needed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that because it feels like a piece that we need to address one way or the other.
I have one more comment if everybody else is done. It's the last bullet point on the second page of the policy, and it says, it refers to if the decision is non-removal from the class. So that tells me a parent can make a request.
Is it
and
the
we can
policy?
get, it's in
The
I'm sorry, in the regulation, I apologize.
Last bullet
We can,
point.
yeah, the last bullet on page 2, the principal will inform parent or legal guardian of the decision, and if the decision is non-removal. So that opens the door to a parent can make a request and we can say, we're not going to remove your child from this. Can you talk about that a little bit more and clarify maybe what circumstances something like that might happen? Because again, these are requests based on a parent's personal
Yeah,
beliefs.
at present, there are no circumstances that we can think of that we would deny, that we would make a decision for non-removal if a parent has objected to a material or resource that goes against the attributes that are listed in those bullet points. We can't think of one right now. I hesitate to say there are none because I've been around long enough to say something could come up. But at present,
This is
there are no
okay as well,
circumstances.
according to what legislation does exist and the intentions of the Supreme Court decision. This is okay for this to be in the policy.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And one of the things I was thinking when I heard that, I'm sorry, I wanted to add that I think that if, let's say, there was an objection drawn and the teacher said, you know what, I'm just gonna scrap that, I'm gonna go in a different direction with a different activity completely. So you wouldn't need to remove the child because the teacher may make those decisions to, you know, I've seen that happen where a teacher has chosen just to go in a complete different direction.
Okay, okay. And just for anecdotal numbers of opt-outs that we tend to see? I mean, I know it's different now because there's a whole new category, but have we seen very many of these?
No. Prior to this year, I don't think we've had any. I haven't consulted with any of the principals on them.
On any, yeah?
No, it's very rare.
And just a couple this year?
Just a couple this year.
I do have one final question. The last bullet of the regulation states that within 10 calendar days after receiving notification of such decision from the superintendent, the parent or legal guardian may request an appeal to the governing board. How does that work? Do we hold a meeting or do we review documentation? What?
Yeah, we would get our legal counsel involved and they would walk us through an appeal process.
If
Non-removal.
Right.
Likely.
Yeah.
That's why.
Or you hold a special meeting. You hold a special meeting.
Again, if we're not really anticipating any reasons for non-removal, it's likely a moot point, but good to have the provision
Correct.
in the regulation.
Yeah, we don't
in
anticipate
case-
that
In case that.
occurring.
Yeah. Anything else, folks? I think we put Cheryl through her paces.
Got my notes. Appreciate your notes.
Almost
Thank
like
you so
IKF.
Again, this is the first reading. It'll come back to us in a couple of weeks for a second reading. I would imagine that Cheryl's gonna go over it with a fine tooth comb and
Absolutely.
address any and all concerns that came up this evening. It's great work on this policy, and we'll see it again in a couple of weeks.
Team effort as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, we are moving on to item 8, which is discussion/reports, and 8.1 is any Arizona legislative or governmental activity that's going on that anyone would like to discuss affecting the education arena. No.
Yeah.
No.
Let's keep it no till January.
No till January, hopefully. Okay. Were you gonna say
There
something?
was that lawsuit that was recently.
That's right. That was actually
Oh.
fairly significant. The
Yes.
School Facilities
yes.
Board decision,
Yep.
which is your buddy,
School
right, Amy?
funding, the school
Annie
funding.
Edelman, and they got a positive response from the trial judge, yes.
Correct.
Obviously, it's going to go up on appeal, as these things do, likely to the Supreme Court
Money
level.
will still
but
not be dispersed. in
it
the
was
meantime.
really very nice to see this disparity in capital funding for public schools acknowledged within our court system at
Right.
that level. So that was very encouraging to see, very encouraging to see. Good catch, I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 9 is agenda planning. That will be Jacqueline and I tomorrow, 10 o'clock at the district with Dr. Bartlett. Any other future agenda considerations? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Excellent meeting, everyone.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Amy.
Thank you all for coming.
Aye.
I hope you enjoyed your governing board meeting experience. Megan?